Yeah, we saw a lot of Spirits versus Delirium. I think there was right before Emrakul, the Promised End got banned in Standard. Saw Brad Nelson win an Open with the green-black Delirium deck in a heavily populated Spirits kind of field.
I have a very good anecdote about that tournament, but I will save for
another day.
No, just for like later in the match.
For a couple minutes from now.
Yeah.
Jessup's on the play with the Blooming Marsh. Merriam with the tapped Temple Garden. Tapped Breeding Pool for Jessup, and then a Botanical Sanctum leading into Selfless Spirit for Merriam. That gets Fatal pushed. Land number 3 for Jessup's Blooming Marsh, and here is Uro.
So Ross not starting on a 1-drop means that he's going to be a little far behind here, but it's nothing has happened so far that is outside the realm of his scope of being able to stay in the game. The Euro accelerating Jessup's start here is also pretty good. His life buffer as well as that extra land drop is going to allow him to really turbocharge the next few turns.
Uro put in a Breeding Pool. Miriam's going to play an Empyrean Eagle for his turn. Not the fastest start, but a 4th land in a Collected Company could start to push Merriam into this game.
Yeah. Another Euro here is going to gain some more life. Let him play an extra land again. But it is a redundant copy. It doesn't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things. I assume that one will likely eat the other as just with the escape cost.
Jessup to 26, does put in a swamp, and then another land, an Overgrown Tomb tap, so up to 6 lands.
I will say that this matchup is probably not the best for the Bant Spirits deck. They really prey on opponents who aren't that interactive because of cards like Spell Queller. And when your opponent has a bunch of spot removal and these big haymakers that get over Spell Queller, like your Imrakuls, like your Ishkanah Graph Widows, that's really where the deck starts to struggle. Ross is going to need a little help from Collected Company to get the job done. You saw him at the end of his turn. He was about to play the Breeding Pool tap, decided to shock, maybe to bluff the Collected Company. I don't think he's got it, but that might have been a reverse bluff too. You don't know yet.
Bluff, counter bluff.
Yep.
It's all live. Miriam's at 18 either way. So you see a Satyr Wayfinder for Jessup.
Yeah, but the Grizzly Salvage here is, the Satyr Wayfinder here does fuel the Euro, so he's going to be able to bring one back this turn quite easily.
That was kind of a hallmark of Eldritch Moon Standard. Ishkanah getting over Spell Queller.
Right. And it was so good, too, making all the spiders that blocked the Spirit Flyers.
Looks like Uro's planning on escaping. Question for Jessup, does he want to leave the other Uro in the graveyard? Is there a different card type he wants? He's going to deliberate over that real quick.
That is the only part of the deck that's a little bit awkward is Euro versus Delirium.
Uro's going to escape. It's going to get tagged by the Spell Queller here for Merriam as we go back to Merriam.
Ooh, he has another Spell Queller in hand, too. He's going to shock here to either represent multiple things or just has multiple things.
It goes to 16 by shocking. Casts a Supreme Phantom and attacks for 3. Jessup to 23. Merriam leaving up 3 mana here. Looks like he's representing another Spell Queller.
He does have another Spell Queller. I saw it flash a second ago. Here he's going to play another Spell Queller in response to a Thoughtseize because it was probably going to get stripped anyway. But unbeknownst to him, he's about to get thrown in the trash. This Murderous Rider is going to create a collapse effect from these Spell Quellers and really push Danny further ahead. Though, interestingly enough, if he targets the Spell Queller that has the Euro, he didn't pay the escape cost on that one. I mean, he did, but he didn't do it this time.
The Rider is either getting that Thoughtseize from Miriam's last card or getting a Gross Spiral-ish effect from the front side of a Euro. But this Grizzly Salvage does mean he'll be able to escape it in short order.
Right.
Not this turn, but next. As you see, the Rider does tag the Uro Spell Queller. Jessup will gain some life for that. Loses 2, then gains 3, ends up at 24. And the Murderous Rider goes on an adventure. Back to Ross Merriam.
This was interesting. So Danny played the Shockland tapped. I'm pretty sure he has a Jace VP in hand. Thought maybe he'd want to go ahead and get that down, start looting, maybe transform it before bringing back the Euro. Unless I'm misreading his hand. We'll see in just a moment. Maybe he values the 2 life higher. I don't know.
Another Eagle for Merriam. Supreme Phantom connects for 2. Spell Queller for 4 now, so that was 6. Jessup down to 20.
Yeah, he's going to take a little more here from the Thoughtseize. But he's going to be able to bring back Euro and cast the Jace. But he's not going to be able to transform it for a little bit.
Sees Glacial Fortress with that Thoughtseize, goes to 18.
Escape 5 probably needs to leave the land. I'm not sure what the other card should be. It's not super easy to get lands in the graveyard with this deck, though they do play a lot of Fabled Passage. That certainly helps.
Fully 4 copies of Fabled Passage. The legal fetch land, as it were.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he drew Traverse the Ulvenwald as his draw, which is pretty awkward to draw off of the Euro that you just used to escape on.
Yeah. This Jace Fringe Prodigy plus this Uro might enable him to get back to Delirium before too long.
Wow, this is a hell of an attack. Dan here, representing a Fatal Push, doesn't have it, but Ross he just can't block. This is a free damage. If he blocks and gets Fatal Pushed, I think he loses the game.
Right. Also, Dan kind of happy just getting creature in the graveyard, just land sorcery right now. So really nice attack by Jessup.
Yeah, love the attack from Jessup there. It seemed like why would I attack my 1/1 into your 2/3, but just the threat of Fatal Push and the threat of putting an extra card in the graveyard for Delirium, huge here.
So Merriam draws, plays that Glacial Fortress, attacks with the 3 creatures. Jessup's going to take that hit. What is this now? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So Jessup's at 10, if I'm not mistaken. There it is.
Now here it looks like Jessup drew Walking Ballista for the turn. He has a Jace that he can loot with. And I believe he has Traverse the Ulvenwald as well. So if he just loots away the Ballista, he can traverse and cast something. Now, wow. I was going to say that Euro attacking was just going to be outrageous, but Nebelgast Herald off the top. That's a hater, boy.
Taps the Euro, stops the life gain, and relevantly represents that extra damage, so Miriam's presenting lethal next turn, forces some action from Jessup.
Yeah, and that Walking Ballista is surprisingly ineffective on this battlefield. He can make a 4/4 Ballista, but he can really only kill 1 creature, even though there are multiple in the graveyard, or multiple in play that would normally die to it. It's just the Lord effects just give so much more toughness. So if he makes a 4/4 Ballista here, he has to effectively spend 3 counters just to kill Nebelgast Herald, or he can spend all 4 counters to kill either of the Lord effects.
Jace goes looting, Overgrown Tomb is discarded. Satyr Wayfinder once again gets in that cheeky pointed damage, Miriam to 14. And it's looking like a tap of 8 for a Walking Ballista. Jessup's weighing the options here. Merriam would be pretty happy winning this game, as teammates Aaron Barich and Becky Adlman did win their first.
Yeah, good news for Ross because, he is advantaged right now. I think in the matchup he's not. That Nebelgast Herald was a huge deal. I can't stress how good that draw was, just because tapping down Euro prevents an extra card draw and an extra land drop. This turn, if he wanted to, he could have potentially looted away an extra card, played an extra land, cast Traverse the Ulvenwald, maybe even had a chance, because of everything that has been happening, to cast Emrakul this turn. If the card on the top was a different card type than what he's drawn.
It's like if a Planeswalker showed up and got looted away.
Or a Courser Crew Fix, one of those enchantments, something like that.
Sure.
It was possible with the extra land drop from Euro to get 5 in the graveyard plus the Traverse.
So here's Ballista on 4.
Yeah, no cards in hand from Ross, so I think this is a really tough decision from Dan. Like if you kill a Lord effect, you prevent a lot of damage, but if you go for the Nebelgast Herald, you're almost guaranteed to be able to attack with the Euro next turn. I think this is probably better in the long run, just better for racing scenarios, but a Lord off the top here. It's not quite lethal, though, is it?
I think this, so we have 2 damage from the Phantom, 4 damage from the Queller, 4 from the Herald. Yep, so Replacement Lord does get Merriam there. And that is a 3 to the good for the team on the right. 2 more game wins will close the match for them.
Yeah, this matchup is really weird because on the face of it, like, Ross's deck is not really that resilient to removal. Like, he has Selfless Spirit, but that trades 1-for-1 pretty easily. He has, stuff like Rattle Change that can occasionally give Hexproof in weird spots. But long story short, he just has a bunch of cheap threats that he plays, and if the opponent can't match, like, removal 1-for-1 or have sweepers, the Spirits deck will just overrun you, and all the creatures fly, so you can't really rumble in combat. It's kind of their big draw is that they just all have flying.
So it was a bit of a slower start for Merriam. We figured to be the aggressor in the matchup, but ultimately a team of Lords is going to outmuscle a lot of what you can present in this format.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at the sideboards here, because this is actually a pretty interesting sideboard dichotomy. I'm curious how both players are going to do it.
Yeah, so options for Dan Jessup, 3 Leyline of the Void,
Nope.
2 Mystical Dispute,
Absolutely.
2 Damping Sphere.
Get out.
Abrupt Decay.
Want all the removal.
Okay, so Assassin's Trophy.
Yeah,
and
sorry,
okay,
yeah, kind of
that
threw
one's
you off
good.
there. Yeah, Assassin's
Reclamation Sage.
Nah, no real targets for it.
Unmoored Ego.
People board in cards like Unmoored Ego far too often to name stuff like Collected Company. Just don't do it. Just
How do you feel about tagging Company with Disdainful Stroke?
Not good enough.
All
if
right.
you had more targets, cards like Disdainful Stroke, Unmoored Ego, if they're only hitting one thing, unless that thing is the entirety of your opponent's deck, not worth siding in.
That's just the relevant difference here is if Stroke does catch Company, that's a very positive tempo swing.
Agree.
So
Perfectly agree.
you're right. Vivian Reed.
Now, it does kill flyers, but it also costs 5. I think it's going to come in because it's not that bad.
Can't quell it.
Can't spell queller it. 5 is the magic number there. I like it. I think I would bring it in.
Ultimate Price, Witch's Vengeance. These are removal. They're
Yes,
good.
yes. All the removal comes in. You just want to trade 1 for 1 as much as possible, which is actually quite strong in the matchup. So hopefully for Dan Jessup, he's able to peel one of those in games 2 or 3.
And for Ross Merriam, how do you feel about his 4 Mystical Disputes?
There aren't nearly enough blue cards in Dan Jessup's deck. While it will counter Euro quite often, I don't think it's worthwhile. Like, you counter Jace and Euro, and that's about it.
3 Mana Leak for Ishkana?
I don't think it's worth it. I think
Okay.
you can beat Ishkanah with the Lord effects. It's not easy, but you can do it. You just have to draw Collected Company.
Sure. Couple Deputy of Detention.
I actually don't mind those. They can snag something like Jace French Prodigy early, and if they die, like, they've kind of already done their damage for stalling you out for a while. If you tag a Euro, if it dies and comes back, it just goes back to the graveyard. I don't love it, but if you brought it in, it would not surprise me.
2 Disdainful Stroke.
Absolutely. Enough cards and important cards from Dan where I think that it matters enough.
2 Rest in Peace.
Yeah, the exiling the graveyard, we had this discussion yesterday with Leyline of the Void. I think Recipe is quite good here.
All right. Seal Away, Settle the Wreckage, Dromoka's Command, Damping Sphere, any of that?
No, this is not a matchup where you want removal. You just want a little bit of graveyard hate, a lot of pressure, a little bit of counter spells.
All right. Sounds good. This plan for Ross Merriam. Player that you see regularly here on this Twitch channel. You can catch him Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time playing Versus Live. You can get the link to that on StarCityGames.com. Playing against Corey B, trying to get his marbles back.
Yeah, Corey B, Ross Merriam put on a great show every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. I used to be one of the ones putting on that show.
It was a time.
It was a good show. I miss it.
So you've been out for, what, 4 months, 5 months?
About 5 months, yeah.
You ever going to come back?
It depends if my wife ever gets a job in Roanoke again.
Maybe stop by?
I'll stop by whenever like there's an event in town. Like, I tried to do one for the Invitational in November. Unfortunately, though, the studio was all booked up for the equipment was already moved to the Berglund Center for the Invitational.
Yeah, they don't do them Thursdays, so we got to get going there.
Yeah, my flight landed on Tuesday into town, but I didn't land until like 7 p.m., and that's just too late.
I stopped by.
I think Brad was there doing it, right?
Yeah, there was a couple. Brad did it. I did one
Oh, cool.
before the last Invitational. I was not able to capture the marbles. Ross is a powerful adversary.
He is. He has quite a few accolades on the SCG Tour. Nice one. Yeah, Ross is a great player. Been on the SCG Tour for quite a while now. He's been living in Roanoke for about 4 or 5 years, I think, and really just traveling to all the events on the East Coast, up and down the Eastern Seaboard, and putting up great numbers.
4 top 8s last year, which is 1 less than his lifetime wins. 5 trophies for Ross Merriam.
Yeah, he's in the 5 trophy club. There's not very many people there. And he's looking maybe to get him a 6th one this weekend. Team events are kind of escaping him as far as trophies are concerned. Has at least 1 finals that I'm aware of. I know that when he was teaming with Tannen Grace, it was kind of a running joke that Tannen was never able to win a trophy. And the curse, has followed Ross around in a similar vein. But he did pick up a win with Is a Phoenix, not last year, but the year before at the end of 2018.
An early adopter of that deck.
Oh, he was I don't know if he, was the first person to create it, but he certainly was the first person to take it to a major tournament and crush with it.
Yeah, he showed up a couple times, and then he really really established the deck when he invented Crackling Drake.
Yeah, so Ross, at that tournament was pretty funny. Jim Davis was playing some bad Jim Davis deck, and they were teammates at the time, and Jim was like, Ross, why didn't you tell me your deck was broken? He's like, he just won the tournament. He's just like, I did.
Right.
In our group chat multiple times.
Why didn't you tell me in a way that I believed you? Players underway here in game number 2. We see Jace Fringe Prodigy squaring off against Rest in Peace.
The classic Jace Folk Looter. Now that Vivian Reed here is going to potentially have a huge impact. Not only can it kill a flyer, but it could just kill that Rest in Peace on turn 5.
In the meantime, Jessup at least gets to loot with the Jace. So that one not totally turned off by the Rest in Peace.
Yeah, but the real strength of it is the threat of the turning into effectively a Snapcast from Mage. When it transforms, you're able to minus and flashback a removal spell, a Thought Seize, or something like that. And when you're not able to do that, it's still okay. It's serviceable, but it's not Jace good.
Traverse the Ovenwald going to be exiled there. Jessup not into Lay of the Land. This one's a bit of a cost, though. He's going to cast Uro.
Yeah, but he isn't to Growth Spiral.
Goes to 23, puts a Breeding Pool on the battlefield.
All right, well, if he has another land drop for next turn, that's going to allow him to cast the Vivian Reed, so I'm curious if Ross has the answer here. Looks like he has quite a few flash things in the hand, but I don't know if he has the Disdainful Stroke necessary or even Mystical Dispute necessary to counter the Vivian Reed.
Botanical Sanctum was land number 3, so Merriam representing something at instant speed. So we go back to Dan Jessup. There's an island in the hand, so land number 5 is around. Colors online. Plenty of black, green, and blue mana.
Yeah, I think they're just having a discussion now on whether or not they think Ross has some sort of counterspell, and I think Zach Allen has kind of figured out the same thing that I did, that it's very unlikely that Ross has a Disdainful Stroke in hand. There's actually not that many targets for it. The more I looked at the deck list, the more I realized that Euro only costs 3 even when you're doing the other ability. And if you just look at his deck list on the Cardboard Live extension, you can see all his removal costs 1 and 2. Planeswalkers all cost 1 except for the Nissa Who Shakes the World. There's 1 of that. 1 Ishkanah, 1 Emrakul, and that's it outside of sideboard cards.
So Vivian does come down. It resolves. It destroys Rest in Peace. Merriam had Nebelgast Herald. That's what he used with the mana. Jace is going to loot away Thoughtseize, and we go back to Ross Merriam.
Perhaps a slight misstep from Ross. Could have played the Nebelgast Herald in response to the Vivian killing the Rest in Peace to tap the Jace, and that would have actually sent the looted spell into the discard zone, or the exile zone instead of the graveyard.
Yeah, fair point. You do see that in the graveyard now. Merriam shocks to 18 for a Breeding Pool, attacks for 2, and passes.
Now, putting a Planeswalker in the graveyard is actually pretty good for Dan. Obviously, he'd rather have it in play, but it did the job. It killed the Rest in Peace. It soaked some damage, but it also put a Planeswalker in the graveyard for Delirium, which is potentially worthwhile.
Back over to Jessup. He will loot. Discards a Breeding Pool. Plays a Breeding Pool tapped. You see Ishkanah among the holdings. You have Sorcery Planeswalker land in the graveyard.
Yeah, Ishkanah in the hand looked like a Fatal Push as well, but that doesn't tag 3s unless you hit Revolt.
Merriam does have Collected Company and 2 Lords, a couple Supreme Phantoms joining the party. And a couple Fatal Push, going to kick them right out.
Yep. And if I'm not mistaken, that actually does give him Delirium next turn for Ishkanah, so Ross is going to need something big here.
Yeah, Instant is a fresh card type for Jessup, so he's fully delirious. Merriam plays a Glacial Fortress. Here's a Selfless Spirit.
It's pretty brutal, too, because that Thoughtseize is looming in the graveyard as the 4th card type, so Ross here might get extremely punished for that small misstep on the Vivian targeting the Rest in Peace turn.
Herald's going to knock Jessup to 21.
Well, I guess Jessup did draw a creature here with the Seder Wayfinder, so it would not have changed much.
He just has active Jace, right? It's going to catch up eventually.
Exactly.
Jace goes looting. Jace discards Jace. Jace transforms into Jace.
Great. And now, if you're Dan, you're just windmill slamming this Ishkanah and crossing your fingers. You definitely should not cast a Seder Wayfinder and gamble on a land. Because if it gets tagged with Spell Queller, you just lose on the spot.
Yeah, that would be pretty brutal. And here just comes Ishkanah.
Yep.
Still has not activated the Telepath Unbound.
Yeah, I think he might actually start ticking this up to shrink the opposing creatures. But he's casting Ishkanah first because if the Ishkanah gets countered, then he wants to definitely tick up to keep the Jace alive.
So Ishkanah shows up. I imagine we got some spiders on the way. Jace is going to plus on the Herald.
Yeah, I don't think we got those. I could be wrong. I'm guessing we do not have 1-2 spiders in the box.
Thought we made a fancy new spider.
Do we make a new spider?
I think we made a fancy. It's not a person. It's just a spider.
Oh, okay.
Things are all tied up in the modern seat. Yeah, look at that spider.
Oh, you right. All right, Mr. Oh, he turned. I was like, wow, Mr. Nebelgast Herald upside down. Why is that? I was like, oh, it's shrunk.
A little 0-1.
Common little thing that players do whenever there's an invisible static effect messing with one of your permanents. Turn upside down just reminds you, if anything, that your card is no longer functional.
Right. Don't want to make a mistake around your card. It does still have the ability to tap creatures when Merriam produces additional spirits, but he's facing down a lot of spiders here. He'll play a Botanical Sanctum pass, tapped and pass.
Yeah, there is only one copy of Ishkanah Graphido in the deck, but with Traverse Ulvenwald, you effectively have 3 or 4. You can see a lot of your deck each game.
Go back to Dan Jessup. Here's the Thoughtseize. Merriam has a Spell Queller. That'll try to catch the Thoughtseize and also tap the Ishkanah. That all works.
Yeah, it's a good play from Ross there. Tapping the Ishkanah might let him attack next turn as well. Just depends on if he can get one of those Lord effects down.
Seder Wayfinder for Jessup. He'd love to find a Fabled Passage. Finds a Blooming Marsh, though.
Yeah, so that land entering the battlefield tap means he cannot bring back the Euro this turn, if I'm not mistaken. What he can do is perhaps minus the Jace, targeting Fatal Push, and kill the Selfless Spirit. But it looks like he's just going to continue shrinking various creatures from Ross's side of things to make attacks really untenable.
Plus is on the Herald, plays the Marsh. Back over to Ross Merriam.
All right, well, he has a, looks like a Supreme Phantom in hand, but it might be a Row Chains if I'm not mistaken. It's hard to tell. 2-drop blue spirit with some chains coming out of it, you know what I'm saying? All right, but if it is Supreme Phantom, he can play it, tap down one of the spiders, and attack with at least the Spell Queller. The Selfless Spirit could get double blocked. He does, it looks like he has a Spectral Sailor, though, so maybe that's worth casting to tap down another one so he can attack with both.
Supreme Phantom and Spectral Sailor. Some spiders tapped. A big attack here. Coming at the Jace, it would seem.
Yep, and the Nebelgast Herald is still shrunk, but it has 1 power from the Supreme Phantom, so it is getting in for 1 at least. And the Spider probably going to block the Nebelgast Herald, and then Jace going to take, looks like 6 down to 1. But a chump block on something like Spell Queller or Selfless Spirit could potentially make it so that he could minus it next turn to get a free spell out of the graveyard.
A removal spell that would deal with the Selfless Spirit exactly.
Right. No matter what he targets, Ross has the option to sack the Selfless Spirit. So
Jessup thinking of where to go with the Spider. He's going to jump in front of the Spell Queller.
Yeah, but Ross is basically out of tappers right now with the Nebelgast Herald. He's going to need something like Collect a Company off the top, or just some juice off maybe the Spectral Sailor draws to get effectively another attack like he just had, because he has to tap down quite a bit of stuff.
And Jace going to go to 3 from that attack. Back to Dan Jessup. Too bad Moorland Haunt isn't legal. Could really do some work with that Herald with that card.
That's true. That does sound pretty good. I'm a huge fan of Nebelgast Herald. Like, when I first saw it in these decks, I was kind of thrown for a loop, to be honest.
Looks like Uro is going to escape for Jessup to start his turn. That's going to work. He'll go back to 24, put a Swamp on the battlefield, and Fatal Push is the card in hand.
So this is kind of an interesting spot. Dan can minus targeting Fatal Push, and that actually turns on Revolt. And he can target the Nebelgas Herald twice if he wants. He has the Fatal Push in hand and the one in the graveyard, and that'll get rid of it so that his creatures can't get tapped down.
So there is a -3 on the Jace. Going to bin itself. Fatal Push, cast from the graveyard. Targets the Spirit. Merriam will sacrifice it, and now we'll see where the other Fatal Push goes. You're thinking that it is the Herald.
Yeah, the Thoughtseize is a dead card. Spectral Sailor is actually quite strong for maybe drawing some cards. So I would be fine with Dan targeting either Nebelgas Herald or Spectral Sailor, but I don't think you target Queller or the Supreme Phantom. Neither represent that much of a threat at the moment.
Yeah, Jessup has a lot of life and a 3/5, so the Lord is of less consequence.
I would tag the Spectral Sailor, and I would do it now. You do not want to let Ross draw some extra cards. That is the way that you make Nebelgas Herald good, but drawing extra cards also can find extra Nebelgas Heralds or collect the companies.
All right, and the Sailor is the target. Okay. One push was exiled, the other one does go to the graveyard. And relevantly, that is Delirium, instant sorcery, planeswalker creature.
Yep, the minus of the Jace did transform it back into Vryn's Prodigy, which is a creature. Wow,
Imperial
big draw.
Tap your Spider and attack you.
Ross has done the max punishment here. Both games so far, whenever Dan makes a decision on what to target. Now, there are 2 Lord effects happening right now, so you can't double block and kill the Nebelgas Herald. So soaking the damage here makes the most sense. He's going to need some Witch's Vengeance action here. Oh, Witch's Vengeance is not even good. Holy crap. It only kills the Nebelgas Herald.
Yeah, when you have 2 Lords, that Eagle and the Phantom are both 4s.
Right.
So we'll draw an attack with Uro. He took a hit for 10. He's at 14, but back to 17. Plays a Forest.
Yep, and I believe he has another Euro, so he might just go ahead and slam that.
Merriam takes 6 to 12. Getting an update that Becky Adlman has 2-0'd Zach Allen in the standard seat. That's good news for Merriam.
That's interesting, because I thought Azor's Control was pretty favorable versus Mono Red Aggro. I know that's why Cord Baumeister played it last week, or at least that's what I recall him saying.
I think there's definitely a difficulty in assessing the matchup, where the games that Azorius wins don't feel close. The games that the Mono Red deck wins can feel close.
That's fair, that's fair.
But I think on the balance, it's pretty even.
I mean, when it comes to just like combining Annex, Harden in the Forge, and Embercleave, I just think that's neat.
I've been a big fan of just Anax legend ruling himself.
To make
you just get
two
you get 4 satyrs because you get
4?
4 devotion when it checks.
Oh man!
Even if you have no other permanents, that's really nice.
Yeah.
So here is that backup Uro.
Yeah, they both see each other. That's cool. Okay.
Jessup goes to 20, and he actually just kept the one he had to sacrifice, perhaps planning on escaping immediately. Depending what he drew, of course. Looks like it's something that doesn't work, so yeah, 5 cards exiled, Uro right back, gains some more life to 23, draws another card.
This really only affects Traverse the Ulvenwald since he has his Ishkanah down. Obviously, it can affect something like Emrakul later in the game. There's not a guarantee that Emrakul's even in his deck anymore. It's not that good against opponents who just have creatures in their deck.
True.
Like, you really want Emrakul against decks that have, you know, removal spells, things like that. Because, like, what are you going to do when you time walk your opponent? You're going to make them, or you mind slave your opponent. You're going to make them attack into your creatures. That's it. But if you don't have that many creatures, it doesn't really do anything.
Fair enough. Satyr Wayfinder found a land. Merriam just drew and passed.
He drew the Witch's Vengeance.
Not quite good enough. Ooh, another Nebelgas Herald from Merriam. That's going to tap Uro and Ishkanah.
Okay, well,
ooh,
this
Abrupt
is going to be
Decay.
bad.
That's a good. This is a combo.
Yeah, this
2
is
cards,
all of them.
Plague Wind. That ain't bad. I will name Spirit with Witch's Vengeance, please.
Yeah, you sure you want to name Spirit? Okay. You sure you don't want to name Spider?
Thoughtseize freed up. Don't think Jessup wants to cast that. That's going to exile.
Yeah,
That's fine.
it's a May on the Spell Queller. The life is more important. Ross has no cards in hand, so.
All right, back to Ross Merriam, now in dire straits, and in fact, no interested in continuing to play.
Yeah, he also drew Mystical Diffuser his turn.
The These players are going to game 3.
Yeah, that was a hot little combo from Dan.
All right, we're going to go ahead and switch over. Check out the deciding game 3 for our modern seat. Demir Wurza for Harlan Fear against Golgagmoth combo for Aaron Barich. Barich has expressed that her concern with this deck going forward is people wising up and playing Grafdigger's Cage.
Yep.
Harlan Fear kind of doesn't leave home without that card.
Yeah, I mean, I know for a while he was like main decking it in his Wurza deck, and it just kind of makes sense because it's such a powerful card against all these Collected Company, like Devoted Druid decks that are running around.
Yeah, just in the sideboard this weekend, but we are in a sideboard game. So plenty of access to that with these War of Inventions. And you see Barich did lose the first sideboarded game, starting this one with the Once Upon a Time for a Yawgmoth.
Are you assuming that it's Aaron's turn? Because I didn't know. Because
it is unclear.
It is unclear. Because Once Upon a Time is for some reason an instant.
I think it was a fair bet it was Barich's turn.
How is it
Your
not
point
a
is well
sorcery?
taken.
How is it not a sorcery? I don't understand.
That's like not even the only thing you could complain about.
No, there are
You
literally
can go on.
dozens.
You can go on.
Dozens of them.
Blooming Marsh versus Scalding Tarn. Here's a Swamp on turn 2 for Barich.
Taylor's oldest time.
Phyrexian Revoker among the holdings. That'll be the cast. Plenty of names in this Wurza deck.
Yeah, and we'll get confirmation on what is being named here.
Thopter Foundry is the name. Now remember, there's some difference in these kind of shut-off ability effects. Pithing Needle can name lands, Revoker can't. So you would want to crack Scalding Tarn in response if it was a Pithing Needle. With Revoker, Fear could just leave that up, as you see him fetch the Tarn now.
Yeah, also notable, stuff like Pithing Needle, Sorcerer Spyglass do not stop mana abilities.
Correct.
But Phyrexian Invoker can.
Yeah, so it can turn off, like, Moxen, Talismans, that
It
sort of
actually
stuff.
just completely shut down Urza.
Yes.
Normally, those effects don't stop Urza, but Revoker does, which is nice. But Dismember here, taking it down, so it doesn't really matter.
Fatal Push, rather.
Oh, excuse me, sorry. He has Dismember in hand. I thought this one he fired off.
Fear does take some damage, though. Fetches and shocks for Watery Grave. He's at 17. Starts his turn with Inquisition of Kozilek. Takes Thrashing Brontodon. Sees a couple Yawgmoth, a Dryad Arbor, and a Watery Grave, I want to say. No, that's not right.
Mire.
Obviously, it's not a Watery Grave because it's not a blue-black deck. But yes, it is the hybrid land. It is Twilight Mire.
Yeah, as we have determined, this deck is called Golgagmoth,
Correct.
not Demirmoth.
Yes. Has to be a Golgaria land and a Golgagmoth deck.
Sorry, Yawgmir.
Yawgmir. Yawgmoth is kind of historically a Dimir kind of vibe.
I would actually think that he's more Golgari.
I just think of cards like Yawgmoth's Bargain, Yawgmoth's Will. That's a Dimir kind of setup.
Wait, are you talking about because they affect the graveyard and draw cards? Much
yes,
like
that's it.
every green card printed in the last 10 years? Got him! Harmonize much?
God. That point is so true, but you're still so wrong.
I know.
I don't know what to say.
I know. That's why it's beautiful. All right, so we have some developments. Dryad Arbor got hit with a Fatal Push. That slowed down the development from Barich, but she had a follow-up of Birds of Paradise into one of those Yawgmoths.
Here's a pretty nice sideboard card for Fear, too. Kalitas. That's not bad against undying creatures.
Yeah, you don't see that one in Modern too often. It's quite often a Pioneer sideboard card, occasionally main deck and Vampires. Very powerful in a fair v fair matchup. And after sideboard here, both players getting really, really interactive with more discard effects, more removal, and stuff like Kalitas is king when you strip all the removal, and also just when your opponent's deck is full of undying creatures. Just so happens to be completely busted.
Fear is going to Thought Seize, sees a Dural's Messenger, takes the backup Yawgmoth.
Not only that, also has another Fatal Push with Revolt here, so he can go ahead and blow up Yawgmoth.
Ooh, yeah, Misty Rainforest turns that on, finds Mystic Sanctuary.
And that's going to give him a zombie from the Kalitas as well.
Puts a Fatal Push on top, casts Fatal Push from hand. Goodbye, Yawgmoth. Hello, zombie.
Now, Barich is considering sacking the bird here to draw a card and shrink the Kalidas, but that's just going to give Harlan an extra zombie and shrink it by 1. So I don't know if it's the best. But it might be worth it just because she has nothing else going on and it cycles the bird into a new card.
Yeah, her hand currently just Geralf's Messenger. She has to get Kalidas off the table. And that's just the starting point. Then she has to figure out something else to do.
Yeah, and Harlan actually used Mystic Sanctuary to put a Fatal Push back on top of the deck, too. So he has another push next turn for the bird to make an extra zombie if he so chooses. Or he can use it to attack something like a Kitchen Finks or whatever Aaron may draw that costs 3 or less.
Kalidas going to pick up that Sword of the Meek, crunch in for 4, Fear to 18. Barich to 15 off of this Verdant Catacombs, finding Overgrown Tomb.
So I can actually tag 4s as well. Fear has the option to sacrifice the Justin Parnell zombie token to turn on Revolt. So,
yeah, 2 black mana sources there, so that would work. And pretty important draw step for Barich, as things went south pretty quickly in this game.
I'm not sure if she has much to actually beat a Kalidas. Like, looking at deck lists here, let's take a peek. Main deck seems like it's Cavalier of Night, or a million copies, or a million -1/-1s from Yawgmoth. Sideboard, 1 Assassin's Trophy, and that's it.
I'll tell you what's not going to do it. Geralf's Messenger plus Young Wolf.
Yep.
So we go back over to Fear, draws that Fatal Push, eats a zombie, kills the Messenger, gets a zombie, attacks for now 6.
Yeah, that Sword of the Meek is rarely used as an actual equipment, but when it is, it's quite funny. Here is a 2-mana 0/1, and that's all the abilities it has.
Something very charming about a 5/6 picking up a Sword of the Meek.
Yeah.
Ooh. And Archmage's Charm to pick up for Fear.
And we're going back to Pioneer.
Outs have gone from slim to none. Once upon a time, yeah, sure, that resolves.
Yeah, just counter whatever that Aaron gets off of it.
Stranglewood Geist, probably just let that one go. Who cares?
Yeah, dude, it's 2-1.
Fear at 30. Barich at 1.
30, uh-oh.
Sorry, 28 apparently. A sparse 28.
All right. Steal your young wolf. That is. I do not revel in Aaron losing, but only the sweet plays. Harlan Fear with a nice win there over Aaron Barich. Kalidas doing a ton of heavy lifting. And finally, the Archmage's Charm stealing a young wolf to get in the last point? Come on, man.
We're all tied up here then. It's going to come down to game number 3 in Pioneer.
Here we go.
Ross Merriam on the play. Botanical Sanctum, go. Dan Jessup. Do we have a Thoughtseize? We have a Blooming Marsh. And we do have a Thoughtseize. Take a look at Miriam's hand. Spectral Sailor in response. See Island, Botanical Sanctum, Collected Company, Selfless Spirit, and I believe a Hinterland Harbor at the bottom there. Not sure.
Yeah, it looks like a breeding pool at the bottom left. There's no Hinterland Harbor in the deck.
It's the Gate Crash breeding pool.
Yes. But Collected Company, a pretty easy take. There's currently no white mana for Selfless Spirit. Ross kept a fairly loose one, but Collected Company is extremely good in the matchup, so it makes sense. Also, 1 drop with Spectral Sailor gets the beats going quick.
I just have such disdain for Return to Ravnica shocks that I don't recognize them when I see them.
See, I actually almost always use Return to Ravnica shocks. I don't know why. I think that I have a disease in my brain.
That's probably not it.
I got Twitter brain.
Collected Company taken by the Thoughtseize. Jessup to 17 after getting hit by the Sailor. Miriam just another Botanical Sanctum. See Jessup play a tap Watery Grave.
Woo! That was a hot one.
In the upkeep, goes for a Fatal Push. Rattle Chain's going to catch that one. Nice pickup by Miriam. Sailor attacks again. Jessup to 16. Third Botanical Sanctum is the land for Merriam.
Remember that thing I was saying last game about Ross just keeps peeling to absolutely demolish Dan in the right situations? Dan repealed last game with the Witch's Vengeance. So he got his Witch's Vengeance. You know what I'm saying? But this go-around, he's got a handful of removal, and Ross's hand's not that good. But that turn was a beating.
All right, see what Jessup can do about it. Starts his turn with the tap breeding pool.
He's just going to decay here. I would tag the Spectral Sailor.
And he does.
The Rattle Chain's letting all of your creatures have flash is kind of cool, though. Ross really needs a white source. Looks like he still just has green and blue sources in hand. Maybe drew another creature he can play, though.
Plays Island, attacks with Rattle Chains. Jessup to 14. Merriam passes.
Well, Jessup has a decision now because I believe he has a land and a Euro and an Abrupt Decay, but not an extra land to cast that Abrupt Decay if he draws off the Euro.
Jessup's going to play Fabled Passage for turn, then think about what he wants to cast.
Looks like he does have Mystical Dispute in hand, too, so he might win a counterspell battle over, you know, a little bit of everything.
Merriam's going to flash in a Mausoleum Wanderer off the Rattle Chains.
Yeah, that Rattle Chains is static ability of giving all your creatures flash. Oddly, more important than the Hexproof thing, which is weird to me, but also just like that comes up way more.
A lot of good abilities on that card.
Yeah, 2 mana, got a lot of text.
Come a long way since Welkin Turn.
Stupid bird.
There's just like 3 functional reprints of Welkin Turn. There it is. Yeah, get that out of there. I want the Zendikar version. What is this Magic 2015? Nobody likes that format.
Wait, was M15 called Magic 2015?
I'm pretty sure.
Maybe you're right.
No way of knowing.
Was M15 before Origins or after Origins?
Before. Was the last one before Magic Origins.
After Origins, were they called Core Set XXY?
Right now, we had Core Set 2019 and Core Set 2020. There was a little hiatus. I remember what years that fell under.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about the hiatus for the Core Sets. God, I just love having stuff like, you know, Essence Scatter just always in Standard. Just give me the delicious Core Sets that just have all the commons that I love.
Merriam's going to play that Breeding Pool tapped. Attack with the Wanderer. Jessup to 13. Rattle Chains was Abrupt Decayed.
Danny here can crack the Fabled Passage, cast Euro from hand, and leave up Abrupt Decay mana, even if he doesn't draw another land. Looks like that's what he's going to go do, fetch up an island, give him an extra blue source for Euro, and Mystical Dispute. Really wants that 3rd blue so he could do the escape ability and cast the Dispute to protect.
Fabled Passage, going to go find a land. Jessup was looking at Island, but a little reconsideration here. Finds Forest.
The island is a little awkward with your green-black spells, but that 3rd blue source might actually come in handy if he ever wants to escape the Euro and hold up Dispute.
Here is Uro. Merriam going to shuffle Jessup's deck. All right. I was going to say we might be here a while, but he has he has stopped.
I think I got to him finally.
Jessup to 16. No land, though.
Yeah, Assassin's Trophy was one of the pickups from Dan there. Looks like he has Decay and Trophy. Ross here still without white mana, at least a Selfless Spirit in hand that he can't cast. Not sure what the last card is other than that.
Tap Breeding Pool and an attack. Abrupt Decay caught by Rattle Chains. That one is castable.
Oh, man.
And that pumps the Wanderer, too, so 2 points coming across. Jessup to 14.
He might have said end of turn.
Sure.
Because right now it says the life total is at 14. I'm pretty sure he only took 1. But, I don't know. Euro coming in from the grave. Black mana at the ready. No Mystical Dispute active. Could gamble a little bit in this spot with a Satyr Wayfinder first to try to hit a land. But, I mean, I guess the same-ish is true for drawing a land off of the Euro to play the Wayfinder. See, you got fewer looks at it. And if you miss on the land with the Wayfinder, it's really bad.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal that way. Jessup to 17, passes. Merriam going to crunch in for 3. Back to 14 goes Jessup. But just a draw and a pass otherwise for Merriam. So now Jessup could potentially start going to work with that big Titan.
Yep. Ross Peel to Coco. Wow.
Ooh.
But perfect answer.
Mana Leak for 3.
Mana Leak for 3.
Mystical Dispute catches the company.
Gets the job done. Here's an attack for 6 with a draw and a land drop and a gain of 3 life. And this game is slowly starting to slip away from Ross Merriam. A lot of really tight technical play from Ross. countering a lot of the stuff Dan's doing at every turn, but Dan just seems to have the answers this game.
Uro trigger puts Jessup to 17. Attack for 6 is going to put Merriam to 8. And there's a walking ballista in Jessup's hand, so we can clean this one up pretty quick. State Wayfinder going to take a look. Apologies, Merriam is at 14. Hit it already registered.
All right, Wayfinder, second main, going to find the land, fill the graveyard a bit for future Euros or traverse Ulvenwalls and such. Ballista is in hand for Dan Jessup as well. That one of very powerful with Traverse Ulvenwald and very good against the low toughness creatures in this Bant Spirits deck. Right now looking more like a Simic Spirits deck. That's probably not good for us.
As the race stood, this was just Merriam attacking for 3 and Jessup gaining it back, and it's about to get a lot worse because Witch's Vengeance was the draw for turn for Jessup.
Yeah, you can cast this just to kill both of the spirits that are in play at the moment. I don't mind it.
Might even just hold it.
Might hold it, yeah. Killing 2 for 1 here when Ross is pretty low in resources. He knows about the Dead Selfless Spirit. The last card is the one that maybe gives him some pause. He could also just slam a giant ballista. A 3/3 ballista here is quite strong.
Can't quell it either.
Right.
Now the attack of the Uro and the Wayfinder puts Merriam to 7.
I suppose there is some consideration to just cast Witch's Vengeance because he played the land tapped instead of untapped.
It's also a big deal that it only shrinks spirits. So if you wait until next turn, Merriam won't be able to have a blocker on your lethal attack.
Sure.
Ballista for 2.
Ballista. I guess so he can hold up Abrupt Decay. That actually is pretty reasonable.
Yeah, there's a choice between Decay or Grizzly Salvage here. And the Ballista for 2, it's good.
Okay. I would just target Rattle Chains. I don't think there's any reason to target the Mausoleum Wonder at the moment. This also prevents Ross from playing things at instant speed if he has another Spirit in hand that doesn't normally have Flash. I would not use the last counter here. The 1/1 is like not that relevant, and the Ballista sitting on the battlefield is basically game over.
Jessup goes ahead and gets aggressive with the Ballista, takes care of the spirits. Ooh, Temple Garden draw from Ross, goes to 5.
Right on time. There it is.
Able to cast Selfless Spirit. But that one probably not long for this world. We see Grizzly Salvage end step for Jessup.
Yeah, Nishkana is going to seal the deal, even if the what is in play is not good enough.
Backup plan for the plan that's already winning the game. Ishkanah Graph Widow picked up.
It's always good to have a plan B, even when your plan A is working flawlessly. Sometimes it doesn't come out like that, you know?
Abrupt Decay. I would like to attack you for lethal, and that's going to work. Dan Jessup's going to clinch this one for the team. Fear, Jessup, and Allen advance to 9-1-1.